Where were we? Super Mario Bros. 2 The Lost Levels were considered too challenging for international players upon release, and while I'm deeply offended by such a notion, the game is really hard and I don't like it. It's okay though, Nintendo of America agreed with me, which is why they cancelled the game overseas. But of course, this left the West with a gaping Mario-shaped hole, and Nintendo, not wanting to miss their chance of keeping the ball rolling, took drastic measures to ensure the audiences didn't have to wait too long for the next game. Instead of designing a new Mario game from scratch, they turned to a Japanese-only game released in 1987 called Doki Doki Panic, filed the serial numbers off, and released it as Super Mario Bros. 2. Okay, that's a little unfair. There is quite a bit that changed to make this a better experience in Doki Doki Panic, and for shits and giggles, I actually played a little bit of it for this review. It's so weird seeing classic Mario enemies appearing in a non-Mario game. The story involves these two twins being pulled into a storybook and the rest of their family jumping in to save them. Imogen, Mama, Lina, and Papa. There are some small differences to Super Mario Bros. 2, such as the amount of health the characters have, the lack of a run button, that was weird, and the Marioification, that's not a word but oh well, of the sprites, such as adding mushrooms and Starmans. The biggest change involves how you actually complete the game. Now, as you may know, in Super Mario Bros. 2, you can choose any character before a stage, and beating the game is just a matter of finishing the levels. However, that's not the case in Doki Doki Panic, as players would have to beat every stage as every character to finish it. What the fuck? No. So yeah, the Mario version is better, and I have to feel bad for Japanese players who bought the game titled Super Mario Bros. USA, only to find out they've already played it. But it's so interesting how these characters would have lasting impacts, like Mario being the all-rounder, Peach being able to glide, and Toad being a 100% man! But okay, I'm done talking about Doki Doki Panic. It's time for the actual games. So, yeah, as we can see, Super Mario Bros. 2 was a bit of a stressful production for Nintendo, but was it at the least worth it? I mean, financially, yeah, this would go on to sell over 7 million copies worldwide, and was the best-selling standalone title for the NES, aka something that wasn't bundled in with the console. The game was highly praised by fans and critics alike, though I feel you don't see many people talking about this one compared to the other 2D Mario entries. In a few ways, Super Mario Bros. 2 is a bit of a black sheep, but like, it's not that drastically different. It's still a 2D platformer, it's not like going from Zelda 1 to Zelda 2 if you get me. But I feel it must be said that this game had more of an impact on the characters of the franchise than the gameplay going forward. Though I say that, this plot is like totally disconnected from the Mario universe as we know it. During a dream, a staircase appears before Mario, which he climbs without question. Good thing he didn't end up somewhere too strange. No, Mario ends up in the lands of the Subcon, where the residents beg Mario to save them from an evil frog known as Wart. Subcon. Like, subconscious? Are we sure this game isn't just an insight into Mario's therapy sessions? Because if so, he's got a long way to go. After waking from this dream, Mario informs Luigi, Princess Peach, and some random blue toad of the situation, where he discovers they've all been having the same dream too. So, upon going back to sleep, the gang head up the stairs together to save Subcon. And eventually, they do so, defeating Wart and waking Mario up where he questions if the whole thing was just a dream. Interesting. But hey, it's different. Super Mario Bros. 2 once again has you trek against several different worlds and defeat bosses at the end of each. However, the level variety is much stronger than the first game, with more memorable biomes and more intricate level design. It's not just a case of going left to right, jumping over mushrooms and green hills. No, now sometimes the levels are really vertical. Sometimes you'll be jumping from vines and chains, sometimes you'll be digging deep underground. There's a level of complexity that simply didn't exist in the original. At times, it works wonders in making every level feel like a unique experience. I remember certain moments, like stealing this magic carpet and flying super high in the sky to leap onto a vine, or here where you pull a weed out only to end up blasting off in a rocket into the sky. Stages mix elements like caves and deserts to allow for a less rigid level progression, and some levels will require you to find keys or to bomb walls to progress. All of this makes Super Mario Bros. 2 a much more interesting experience than the first game on a surface level alone. Beyond that, there's a fair few things this game introduces or changes that gives it its own spice, for better and for worse. So, taking out enemies in the original game wasn't something you really had to think about. You jump on the heads, they go down. Nothing more to it than that. Here, that won't get you very far, as jumping on an enemy's head will simply just have you stand there, achieving nothing. It's here where you can now press down and B to pick up an enemy, which you can then chuck by running and pressing B again. Out of everything that Super Mario Bros. 2 changed, this has the biggest impact as it adds another layer to literally every enemy. You can't get away with just killing an enemy and moving on. You either avoid them, or throw them at another enemy or into a pit. Most enemies won't just die from being thrown, they need to collide with something or end up off screen. And this can cause issues when enemies bounce back off a wall or something and smack you in the face, or in these sand sections where they literally just hurt you for putting them down. Now, yes, while it's fun to take out multiple enemies with one throw, this is a bit of a pace breaker, especially when playing as the weaker characters who take longer to pick things up. I know it's just a small thing, but I can't help but feel it was an unnecessary step to try and make combat feel more engaging. On the flip side, it does make for some more interesting platforming, especially when you're jumping off the faces of fish just to get across a waterfall.
I'm not hungry. do we just make a sign that says sorry?
The mechanics are also used for other things than combat, like grabbing keys to unlock doors. When you do this, a creepy mask will chase you, but to be honest, it's not really that big of a deal because if you put the key down, the mask is like, oh, I'm so sorry for the inconvenience, must have been somebody else, and fucks off. But yeah, you can pick up bombs or sometimes bombs, which is just like a oh shit moment because they explode so fast. But you can also pluck weeds or fruit from the ground to use as projectiles, pick up blocks to reach a high area, kill enemies, or block their attacks. Sometimes you can even find these potions, and these are very important, but first, let me talk about the controls as it's all related. Trust me. So the control in general is much better, depending on who you're playing as. The only new addition to the moveset besides picking shit up is the charge jump you can do by crouching for a bit. At the beginning of every stage, you can choose from one of the 4 characters. Each character has their pros and cons, and there's no way to change your choice, so you best hope you pick well if the stage is particularly demanding. I mean, unless you pick Mario, who is, in my opinion, the best choice by far. I guess it makes sense, it's called Mario Bros 2 after all. He's the all-rounder. Tight controls, a good jump, and decent strength to pick up enemies and objects alike. Luigi brings his moveset back from the other Mario 2, where he jumps a lot higher, but is very slippery on the ground. Since you have a health bar this time, the characters can suffer knockback, and Luigi goes fucking flying from it. It makes him so unreliable, so sorry mate, maybe next time. Peach can hover in midair for a few seconds. I shouldn't need to explain why this is fantastic, but it does come at a price. She's super weak. Don't use Peach in the final level of a world, because she struggles even against Birdo here, who, by the way, appears at the end of most stages. She makes the platforming much simpler, but against enemies, no. Toad is a 100% man! He's got a shit jump, but he can pick things up very quickly. He's great for those digging sections and makes short work of bosses, but the tighter the platforming, the more difficult it gets to play as Toad. So honestly, I just like playing as Mario. I know the point is to experiment, but some of these levels can be a huge pain in the ass anyway, and I just want to use what works. I want to say that the level design for the most part is fun, and hey, like I said, often more memorable. Sometimes you get to use fish as platforms or use bombs to solve mini puzzles. Other times, it can get more awkward, like these digging parts where you have to be really careful about your positioning, as the Shy Guys can get you cornered very easily. One level has you find a hidden key within these jars, and there's no indicator of which jar is the right one, you just have to try them all. Anytime you have to climb vines or chains is always nerve-wracking, as actually jumping off these things is an unreliable nightmare, I hate it. These enemies always follow very awkward patterns, making them tricky to avoid. And what about that time the end of the level just comes to life and attacks you? I mean, it's sort of funny, but it cost me a life, which is something you'll be hurting for here. This game is pretty stingy with extra lives, and for no good reason I feel. I mean, you can still find 1-up mushrooms on the occasion, but for the most part, getting more lives relies on luck. To even spin the wheel, you need to get coins. But as they aren't just in the regular levels like last time, you'll need to find one of these potions I mentioned earlier to enter one of these secret sub-areas. In here, plucking the grass will grant you coins to spin the slots with. Some places are abundant with coins, giving you lots of chances, true, but why did they think making lives a game of chance was a good idea? It makes the game artificially harder for no reason. You can also find mushrooms in these sub-areas which will grant you with an extra hit point for the rest of the stage. They can be fun brain teasers as to where to place the potion, but sometimes it can be a little confusing. My best advice is to just not overthink it. The solution is often simpler than it seems. The mushrooms are the only real power-ups besides Starman's, which spawn after you collect 5 cherries in a level. Well, there's this clock that freezes the enemies, but it's not that exciting. This game has more unique boss fights than any of the others so far. I mean, every fight involves chucking shit at the boss, but sometimes you can make a barrier to protect yourself, or other times you need to chase these little fuckers one by one. Or, you can just commit mass little flame man genocide like I did. Most levels end with a fight against Birdo here, who comes in a few varieties, some more aggressive than others. It's not normally a problem, but again, it might be a reason not to choose Peach, she's just so slow. The final boss, Wart, is really no issue. I'm not really sure why his own machine helps us out, but whatever. Wart dies and Mario rescues the Subcon before waking up. Love this artwork of Mario at the end here, super charming. In fact, the whole game presentation-wise is a huge leap up from the original. The detail and colours on the characters is a massive improvement, and the backgrounds are so much more varied. I also really enjoyed the music. It's not as well known, but it's more varied than the first, and I like it a lot. And that's the Super Mario Bros. 2 that we got. And you know what? It's not one of my favourite Mario games, but I do enjoy it. I think a few things could definitely have been done better, but as a classic Mario game, it definitely stands out as a unique adventure. While its gameplay loop didn't really return, and I guess I'm kinda glad about that, many things from this game would inspire the rest of the franchise. I think the original Mario Bros is the more approachable and generally more fun game, but it's undeniable how much mechanically superior this one is. Super Mario Bros. 3 though, this basically set the standard for like every 2D platformer going forward, in structure and in quality. If you want an idea of how much of an impact Super Mario Bros. 3 left, just look at the modern games. They are still using elements and ideas that were first established and done so well here. It sold over 17 million copies and even got an animated series based on it. Mario 3 is like one of the most influential games of all time, and unlike other games that share that title, it's still super fun to play even now. So, you ever heard of the film The Wizard? I've never seen it personally, and from what I gather, I'm not missing much. But did you know this was actually how Nintendo of America revealed the game? There had recently been a chip shortage that prevented some new Nintendo games making it to Western markets, Mario Bros. 3 being one of those. But due to a request from the makers of The Wizard to have Nintendo product placement, they were able to announce Mario 3 in one of the coolest ways possible.
Super Mario Brothers 3!
That's actually so cool. This game took about 2 years to develop, and compared to the mess of the previous, well, games, it seems this one was a relatively chill time. I couldn't find really any negativity about the development process. The most interesting thing I learned that the game was at one point going to have an overhead view, and be more like an isometric platformer, and I'm sure I speak for most when I say, thank God it didn't. The DNA of this still exists, as apparently the checkerboard background on the title screen was one of the things you'd have been jumping around on. Suppose if they made it, may as well use it, right? One thing I really love about this game is its entire concept is supposed to be a stage play, and you can see that right from the start as the curtain lifts to reveal the title screen. Every time you finish a level, you exit stage right, and I don't know, that's just charming to me. While we're on the topic, this game looks amazing for an NES game. Look how far we've come in such a short time. The detail on the characters and backgrounds is phenomenal, and Mario's got more animations than ever before. I should note, visually, this game would be the inspiration for, like, the entire main franchise going forward. The world themes of grassland, desert, snow, sky, etc. are still, to this day, the main themes that the more traditional Mario games stick to. The world map that connects the levels while also housing toad houses and mini-games will return many times, and the music has been reused and remixed countless times across the whole franchise. And for good reason too, because it's some of the catchiest NES music out there. The story of Super Mario Bros. 3 is that Bowser is back, but this time he's brought his unwanted nephews and nieces, the Koopalings. A very iconic set of characters that, for the life of me, I can never quite remember the name of them all. Right, okay, let's have a go. So we've got Iggy, Lemmy, Wendy, that's an easy one, Morton, Roy, Ludwig, and no, not Bowser Jr., he's not included. Was that them all? Oh, good job me. Anyway, they don't really have much character, they're just here to cause chaos across the Mushroom Kingdom by transforming the kings of every land into animals. So it's up to Mario to reclaim the magic rods from each Koopaling and save the day. But shock and all horror, using the chaos as a distraction, Bowser kidnaps Peach. What a surprise. Anyway, I do like how for the most of the game you receive letters from Peach, who is sending her support, but the final letter is from Bowser telling you that he's nabbed her. It's charming. Anyway, he goes down and Peach is saved. Because what else was going to happen? It doesn't matter though. Super Mario Bros. 3 is so much fun, and is the best of the trilogy easily. We're back to the format from the original Super Mario Bros., except this time, we're building on the whole experience instead of the bullshit. Like I said, the game has a map which represents the current world you're in. To progress, you need to clear the stages that are in your path, but sometimes the path will split, giving you a choice of stages. I think a part of the reason for this was to allow players to get through the game faster, and to encourage replayability. This is a much bigger game than the others, yet still has no save feature, so being able to skip certain stages and just play them another day is a great way to bring people back. As we now live in the modern day, this is less of a problem as you can just save using the Virtual Console, so it means you can just play every stage. But I thought it was just worth mentioning that anyway. But yeah, we're back to the original formula, except there's like way more to it. The different biomes present new challenges, but they often dip into other ideas that are unrelated to the world's theme, just for the sake of variety. As well as our cave and swimming levels returning, we have many new obstacles and gimmicks that would be staples for the franchise. Falling platforms, moving platforms, maze levels, auto-scrollers, the list goes on. We also have many iconic enemies making their debut, like Boos, Thwomps, and even Boom Boom here. The level variety is absolutely huge, and every type of stage has different varieties, but nothing ever overstays its welcome as stages are very short. Not short enough that you blink and you miss it, and there's often secrets to find within certain stages, but it moves along quick enough that the humongous amount of stages this game offers never feels overwhelming. Mario is back to being our only main playable character, with Luigi once again being a two-player only deal, with no differences this time around. So if you really loved how the previous game gave you that choice, then you may feel this is a bit of a step back. But honestly, with how much more enjoyable the level design is, plus the power-ups available to Mario, I don't think that Mario 3 is hurting for some gameplay variety. Mario's control here is very close to perfect. The slipperiness is completely gone and bouncing off enemies has never felt more graceful. He does have a bit of a moon jump, but I'd rather this than what we had before. We've lost the charge jump, but you really don't need it, as Mario's momentum is now the key to making these jumps. You remember I complained about the momentum being wacky in the first two games? Well, in 3, there's now a meter which fills up the more you run uninterrupted. It's called the P-meter, and morally, I can't make a joke about that. And if you don't like that, you're in trouble. But yeah, this meter shows how much momentum you're carrying, and the more full the meter fills, the higher you can jump. If the meter maxes out completely, good god, you can absolutely launch Mario into the sky. Mario can still pick up certain objects like these blue blocks and chuck them at enemies Mario 2 USA style, but now you can pick up a Koopa Troopa shell and take out a whole row of enemies, or even solve some puzzles for a hidden power-up or an extra life. And speaking of power-ups, it was Mario 3 that really showed the potential Mario has to become, well, literally anything. The mushroom and fire flower work exactly as before, except now, if you get hit with the fire flower, or any power-up actually, you don't immediately shrink down, you instead just lose the power-up. That's much better. The Starman of course returns and lasts a bit longer here, but the cool thing is they actually designed a few stages around being invincible. It makes the Starman feel a lot more special if you ask me, and it makes Mario flip jump for some reason. Just thought I'd mention that. The Super Leaf transforms Mario into Raccoon Mario, not Tanuki Mario, that's what this power-up does. Though, the abilities are pretty similar. By maxing out your P-meter and jumping, you can take off to the skies and fly across stages for a short while. Great for avoiding hazards or finding secrets. You can also spam the jump button while falling to slow your descent, which helps a lot with tight platforming. There is also a tail attack, but it's pretty short range and normally ends with me taking a hit, so I'm not big on that. The Tanuki suit also lets you press down and B to turn into a statue that you can't move while using. Fantastic. There's also the P-Wing variety of Raccoon Mario, which lets you fly infinitely for one stage, well, until you get hit anyway. Frog Mario makes its one and only playable appearance here, letting you swim better. It's great underwater, terrible on land. Sorry Frog Mario, you croaked it.
I'm dying.
Finally we have the Hammer Bros suit, the rarest power-up. I mean, I only got it twice in the whole game, but it's so powerful as these hammers can literally kill anything. You know your hammer's packing heat when it can kill a fucking ghost. You can also duck to deflect attacks. It's an amazing power-up, but it's so rare it makes me nervous while using it, because once it's gone, that's it, and this is like its only main appearance. So yeah, Mario's pretty versatile, he controls well, and the levels are intricate and varied. Sounds like a great adventure, right? Well, yeah, it really is. The game has a fantastic pace and manages to still retain that feeling of being an adventure, mostly due to the world map. Now, this is fairly basic here, but as you navigate around, you can do a few things other than just go to the next stage. First up, we've got the Toad Houses, which can grant you a free item for your inventory. While on the world map, you can activate a power-up to give yourself an edge in the next stage, or to use something like a cloud to skip a level entirely. It's a small layer on top of the gameplay, but it works. You can encounter these mini combat missions on the world map that reward you for winning. Sometimes you can avoid them, but other times it's best to pop that Starman and get it over and done with. There's also a couple of mini-games you can play to score some extra lives or some power-ups if you fancy it. What's left? Oh yeah, there's boss fights. Well, okay, so castle stages end with a fight against Boom Boom. And he's absolutely pathetic. The poor guy really tries to vary his strats up, but he couldn't be easier to take down. The Koopalings at the end of the airship levels aren't much harder. They have some degree of variety in their attacks, but they all go down with relative ease. Bowser himself is a fucking idiot this time, as his own ground pound is what sees him off. So yeah, these bosses still aren't winning any awards, but they're okay, I guess. So yeah, pretty much everything about this game is great, except, well, the last two worlds, which, So, World 7 was obviously designed with the mentality of, what if we made everything, including the world map, a maze? The levels get longer and the time limit can actually begin to be a bit of a problem. World 8 is basically just Mario going to war with Bowser as he tries and survive the full force of his armada, and it's not very fun. In fact, it's downright annoying. Not helped that it gets followed up by the most confusing level in the whole goddamn game. I hated this one. The final level is great again, I just don't like the lead up to it. Despite my dislike towards the last parts of this game, I still find Super Mario Bros. 3 to be a great time. It set the bar for the rest of the franchise, and I think it is easily the better game of these sequels. Super Mario Bros. 2 is still fun, but when it comes to the quality I expect from a Mario game, 3 has it in spades. If you haven't played this and you're a Mario fan, give it a go. I think it'll hold up way better than you might think. I don't think that 2 is a must-play, but it's fun and the perfect length, something that it does have over 3. And yeah, that's the NES trilogy. Well, I guess quadrilogy, but now that's over, where did the series go next? Well, we'll find out another time, but for now, I think I've kept some of you waiting long enough. Let's get back to Sonic. I promised weird spin-offs and I shall deliver, so come back next time and we'll just dive head first. Thanks for watching, take care, and I'll see you next time.